to deal with, no matter which deck you're going for. And this Greninja deck can use Rasis to heal a lot of damage from the opponent's Silent Fear. However, Nicolo only has 2 of these cards in his deck, so that's not that big of an option here. And we see Kevin starting with one of his Wobbuffet from the Generation set, which is not really common in Trevenant deck because most of them are just straightforward, trying to get the item lock as often as possible, as consistent as possible. And then of course you want to start with your Phantom.
Yeah, we've seen that Wobbuffet comes in handy if you have a very big Pokemon EX facing, which has already a lot of damage from possibly Trevenant breaks Silent Fear, and Wobbuffet could come in to clean that active spot up. However, this female Wobbuffet at the beginning of the match is not going to do Kevin any good.
Yeah, and you can see that Kevin's hand is immensely big. It looks like Nicolo had so many mulligans that he just managed to draw a lot of cards in his first turn, and if you draw so many cards, the chance of not getting the turn on Trevenant, especially if your opponent went first, is almost non-existent. He needs either a Floatstone or a Mystery Energy attached to the Wobbuffet, then retreat it into a Phantom, and depending on which card he took, he can either attach an energy to the Phantom and then attack with Ascension, or if he used the Floatstone to or if he used the Mystery Energy to retreat in the first place, then he can still attack with Ascension if he finds himself a Dimension Valley. So there are a lot of possibilities here. We see the Mystery Energy being attached to the Wobbuffet, and he grabbed with an Ultra Ball Shaman EX. Because of Wobbuffet's ability, he's not able to use it now, but once he retreats into the Phantom, then of course he can use setup, draw more cards, and hopefully find this one Dimension Valley he needs at the moment.
Yep. Players will have to, of course, concentrate here just to make sure that the sequencing is right. We've seen a couple of hiccups here with that Shaman EX when it wasn't allowed to be played or when you couldn't use its ability. We just noticed that there were actually 3 mulligans, so that means that Kevin is actually able to start with 10 cards in hand plus Wobbuffet in the active spot, and this gives him very many options to go about this first turn. Of course, his #1 priority now is to find that Dimension Valley, because otherwise Nicolo, on the other hand, would have access to item cards in his second turn.
Yeah, exactly. And here we see a very big hand. Quite interesting decision between Battle Compressor and Trainer Mail. If we now discard some cards that are not Dimension Valley, then of course the chance of hitting the Dimension Valley is higher. However, he also discards an N, so the chance of drawing a supporter from the Trainer Mail is lower. But you're just trying to focus on the Trevenant. It's not that important to get other cards out. You don't want to draw that many cards. You just want your Trevenant as fast as possible. And now we can see the Trainer Mail digging for something he really needs. I'm also pretty sure he has a VS Seeker in his hand anyways. So as long as he gets either an Ultra Ball for a next Shaman or the Dimension Valley immediately, he can search for it. However, he is grabbing the Professor Sycamore. Kevin only plays 2 Shaman EX in his list, so he needs to play more conservative with them, depending on other players that use 3 Shaman EX. I personally would say that 3 Shaman EX is more common in Trevenant decks, because most people like to just dig for the turn 1 Trevenant, dig for all the cards they need with the 3rd Shaman. And yeah, we see him actually deciding to go for the N. He doesn't want to waste his Bursting Balloon, he don't want to put the VS Seeker with the Professor Sycamore into the discard pile. He has the chance of giving Nicolo a better hand. We also saw that Nicolo in his first turn spent one of his items that he most likely is not going to use anyways after Kevin evolved for a Frogadier. So Kevin knows Nicolo has a Frogadier in his hand, so playing the N here is the best play, I think.
Yeah, I'm wondering, have you seen if this second Shaman might even be priced potentially?
There is always a possibility.
And from the last card?
This is the Dimension Valley, and this is quite important. There is a Bursting Balloon attached to the active Pumpkaboo, which you usually don't want to attach in this situation. Your opponent is not going to deal damage the next turn. However, he just attached it to draw more cards with the setup early on, and that really paid off. That the last card he drew for his whole turn was the 1 Dimension Valley. If he drew one less card at any point of the game, he would have not gotten it most likely. And now we see the item log. However, Nicolo finds himself a Frogadier and is able to attack with Water Duplicates.
And that's all he needs right now. We know that Greninja decks tend to be a little bit slower in the beginning. He doesn't really mind right now that he's under item lock, because the #1 priority for him is finding as many Greninja as he can. Of course, one requirement for that is finding a lot of Frogadiers. Luckily for him, he found all 4 of them are in his deck, none of them prized.
Exactly, and pricing a Frogadier can be really problematic. It's always interesting to see when you play against a Trevenant deck that people actually take all of the Frogadiers. You can decide to only take 2 and then evolve it later in the game, because with Silent Fear all of them get 30 at the same time. So if you use only 3 at the beginning and then get 1 later, it has less damage than the others. However, this is just the best way to stream your Greninjas, to get a lot of Greninjas into play. And once you have 1 Greninja break, that becomes really annoying for a Trevenant deck to deal with it, but not impossible.
Yeah, very interesting choice, of course, also Nicolo's deck. We've seen that before. He is playing Bursting Balloon. We've seen and get to love this card in Trevenant decks. When we were in Liverpool, we love to see that in action. However, now for the Greninja deck is probably not going to do him any good, because Trevenant Break doesn't rely on dealing damage, but instead it's placing damage counters. So that means that the Bursting Balloon might actually not be activated if Trevenant Break attacks.
Exactly. Even you lock items, even if you are actually able to play Lysander, which Nicolo also plays, a very uncommon card for a Greninja deck. If he manages to get Lysander and then attaches Bursting Balloons, they don't really do anything. Of course, they could outplay potential Tree Slams. However, it's very unlikely that this one specific scenario occurs when you consider that Nicolo is not able to play Ultra Ball for Shaman and then really dig for cards he wants in the one turn he needs them. So the chance of this happening is quite low. However, he has the option to play Lysander. Here we see very early Silent Fear from Kevin. Everything is running how it should run against any deck. Turn 1, evolve into Trevenant. Turn 2, get Trevenant Break, spread a lot of damage. However, Nicolo is also applying pressure by evolving and then using the Moonlight Slash for 80 damage.
Yeah, Nicolo must think, I need to find myself a Rough Seas very, very soon. He only plays 2 copies of them. This is against the Trevenant, of course, a disadvantage, because he really has to think about when he's going to play them. But right now would be a very good timing, because all those Frogadiers on the bench are threatened to be knocked out next turn.
Exactly, and I really love attacking with Tree Slam in this turn, because next turn, if Kevin goes for a Silent Fear, the 2 Frogadiers on Nicolo's bench will be knocked out anyways. But if he doesn't go for a Silent Fear but attacks with a Wobbuffet, which has an energy attached to it anyways, then the Greninja has enough damage for Kevin to get the knockout. However, this would allow Nicolo to get 1 turn of items. So it will be very interesting to see what Kevin is deciding to do. And here we see him discarding 2 of his Dimension Valley. This is one of the most important cards. You play 4 of them. Almost everyone plays 4 of them in their Trevenant decks. You just not need them fast. You also need to replace almost every of your opponent's stadium cards with your Dimension Valley to keep on flowing, to keep attacking. So discarding multiple of them very early is a real shame. And Kevin attached the Bursting Balloon to his Wobbuffet, and here we see him actually retreating into it. And now you can understand why a lot of people go for Wobbuffet. There is always this one big Pokemon your opponent is able to charge that you really need to knock out.
And also he wasn't able to find Trevenant Break, so there was really no option for him. The only other option I could think of would be promoting Trevenant to keep the item lock on. However, that would not enable him to attack this turn. So he decided, I'm going with Wobbuffet. I'm going to get rid of Greninja Break for now. And at the same time, we know that Nicolo will not have access to Pokemon abilities in this turn if this might come up.
Exactly. Now he cannot really evolve into Greninja Break anyways, but this 1 turn of item could have actually cost Kevin the game, because Nicolo is able to set up a lot. He can get rid of cards he don't want to be in his deck. He can play all of his his one Evosoda, which is a cool card. In the late game, it's basically like a dive ball. He can also use the dive ball, set up a lot of Greninjas, play his VA Secret to get Supporter into play, just to maximize his outs and not letting the item lock be a problem. However, like Julian already mentioned, if Kevin doesn't knock out that Greninja Break, the Trevenant on the bench could get knocked out, and then there is no Phantom on Kevin's bench, and he cannot have the item lock anyways. So this is a better play, I think. And here we see actually Bursting Balloon. That could come in very handy for Nicolo.
Yeah, what do you know? I mean, I was just talking about Bursting Balloon not being very useful for him, but right now this is actually a situation where he could make Bursting Balloon work for him.
Yeah, Bursting Balloon doesn't really deal very good with Trevenant because of the item lock and the fact that Silent Fear only puts damage counter. However, against the Wobbuffet, that could give him enough damage to make the knockout. Wobbuffet has 110 HP, so it's hard to knock it out. And well, Nicolo goes for Jirachi.
Well, nice option for him. It's buying him a turn because Wobbuffet won't be able to touch that Jirachi, and it also loses its ability to return safely to the bench because of that dimension, because of that mystery energy. It's going to get discarded. So a very, very tough spot now for Kevin to move that Wobbuffet at the same time. Keeping attacking, it's almost impossible next turn.
I really like that he outplayed. I think he forgot to break price. Okay, never mind. I really like that Nicolo kind of sacrificed his Jirachi. He doesn't really need it anyways, but this way he got rid of the mystery energy, just lowering the odds for Kevin, having his Greninja save. He got rid of the bursting balloon, and now Kevin either needs to attach a new mystery energy card, then, well, this is just an energy that you don't attach to a Trevenant, or he goes back to the Trevenant, then the Wobbuffet is kind of out. Also, the Wobbuffet has 100 HP left. That doesn't really do a lot. Theoretically, he could use Moonlight Slash without returning the energy, and then use Shadow Stitching, which could prevent Kevin from using setup in the late game. However, this is not very likely to happen anyways. So the start-off was just get rid of the energy, get rid of my own Jirachi, and now have Frogly with Bursting Balloon active.
Yeah, Kevin had found a way, though, to keep attacking with Trevenant Break because he has himself a wall. He can use that to evolve into Trevenant Break. At the same time, he found a Float Stone, so Wobbuffet is most likely going to return to the bench now. And if he can find a Trevenant Break, it already has a Mystery Energy attached to it. No Jirachi to fear next turn. Dimension Valley in place, so that might mean that Silent Fear is actually coming up.
Yeah, Kevin also has another Phantom, which means that if the Trevenant Break gets knocked out, then he can evolve the one Phantom into a Trevenant and then keep on attacking. However, he decides to not play it down. He's using Silent Fear. Like we already mentioned, the Bursting Balloon doesn't trigger because it's not deal damage, it's just placing damage counters. And now it's Nicolo's turn again, and let's see if he finds enough energy cards to deal with this situation.
Yeah, and the Ace Trainer is going to be one of the requirements to find himself a lot of energy right now. There's another Bursting Balloon for Trevenant Break. So we've seen a lot of Bursting Balloons in this matchup already.
Yeah, interesting to mention is that Kevin only plays 3 Bursting Balloons. Usually the staple is 4. However, he has also one Echo Arm, which we saw in his hand the last turn. So he has the option to potentially use 6 Bursting Balloons. If everything runs fine, if he is not forced to play or discard the Echo Arm in the early game, then he has more Bursting Balloons than the usual Trevenant. It's just like a trade-off. You either have a higher chance to draw an egg early, or you're more like a late game focused version. And
look at Nicolo's hand. No energy whatsoever, no Rough Seas. There's nothing going for him.
Yeah, the Rough Seas or energy would have been quite cool to just apply more pressure, keep anything going, and as long as Kevin is able to attach one Bursting Balloon every turn, even if Nicolo attacks, then his Greninjas will get knocked out at some point anyways. And since the Trevenant Break has 160 HP, it's very hard to knock it out. And it's not even a Pokemon EX, so you knock out a 160 HP Pokemon which has item log and deals 30 damage of your opponent's Pokemon, and then you draw one prize card. It's very, very hard to play against the Trevenant deck.
I noticed that Nicolo also has a Jirachi, and I think also Professor Sycamore. Would you consider using Jirachi or benching it and then going for Professor Sycamore and maybe buying you another turn?
Well, I'm not 100% sure. Of course, Professor Sycamore is one of the cards he really wants to play, and benching the Jirachi could help him just because in this situation the Trevenant has a lot of Mystery Energy cards attached to it. So he could use Giant Water Shuriken, retreat into Jirachi, Stardust, and then he gets 70 damage. However, he only drew into 1 energy, so he has to reconsider that whole plan. He got the Rough Seas down, is able to heal damage off, and goes for the Giant Water Shuriken. Kevin, unfortunately for him, didn't find himself a new Bursting Balloon, so the Greninja is not taking damage. Here we see the last Dimension Valley hitting the field.
Yeah, we know because it's the last one, Nicolo could actually win the Stadium War if he manages to find his last Rough Seas. We don't know if it's priced.
And yeah, I already noticed that Kevin's deck is kind of low. He still has enough cards to play this Professor Sycamore. However, it's still quite a problematic situation for him. Just bench the Pumpkaboo, and then he can either play Wally, evolve into Trevenant, which won't really help him, or he just goes for the Professor Sycamore, aggressive, drawing cards, drawing the Bursting Balloon, hopefully for him, and then keep on forcing Nicolo to do something, which is very hard when you're under an item lock.
Yeah, he doesn't get the Bursting Balloon, but he's going to shuffle a lot of them back into his deck right now. There's a second one. I think there should be a third one very, very early in the first time he played one, just in case.
Yeah, exactly. And he also has a Trainer Mail, so the chance of not getting Bursting Balloon this turn is very low.
So he's going for exactly that, and if he's going for Silent Fair, we will see if he's going for Silent Fair or for the Tree Slam very soon. But the Silent Fair would put the clock on Jirachi, and that would leave Kevin only with one prize card as soon as this one goes down.
I mean, at this point, you really have to consider, do I even try to deal with a threat, a potential threat, which obviously would be a Greninja break, or do I just... Yeah, okay.
You can choose one of them.
Exactly. Or do I just deal a lot of damage, knock out the Jirachi, and then I knock out the Greninja later anyways? If you put 20 on the Jirachi with Tree Slam and then use Tree Slam later because of the resistance, that's still 60 damage on Jirachi. And if Nicolo goes for the Stardust, Jirachi will be knocked out anyways. So I personally would say Tree Slam at this point is a really great attack to use, especially because it's enough energies. But he goes for the Silent Fear.
It's always a very tough decision to go either way. We see that there's another water energy, so he can use the power to again discard the Phantom. It's really, really tough for Nicolo without the Wally to get another Trevenant going, and that's the only Trevenant he has left now, so it's a very tough decision for Nicolo. He could knock it out, however, at the same time, I think the damage is not piling up too fast yet, but he's in threat of being knocked out again from the Wobbuffet then.
Exactly, the Wobbuffet is a big threat at the moment. If Nicolo knocks out the Trevenant, then Wobbuffet can one-hit knock out the Greninja. If he finds himself a Russies, that would be like the perfect play here. However, he only plays 2 Russies, one's already in discard pile. And yeah, he actually goes for the knockout, takes 60 damage and hopes Kevin doesn't get an energy. And if he gets it, well, then he has to think about a new game plan.
Yeah, and here we go. Wobbuffet, I don't know if he has energy in hand. I don't remember. There's a Super Rod. I don't think there's energy just yet.
Well, if he plays a Super Rod, then it will be hard to draw into it because of his deck being extremely low. We know he has at least 2 Bursting Balloons and 1 other card, but I'm not 100% sure how many cards are left. As long as he gets an energy, he draws 1 prize. Then he has only 1 prize card left. However, if no damage on board, it's extremely hard for Wobbuffet to draw that last prize card.
Yes, and there is, well, that Jirachi would take damage from the Wobbuffet, but again, it has resistance, so it would deal, currently it would deal 40 damage, minus 20 for resistance, so Jirachi would barely hang on.
Exactly, and now it will be quite interesting to see if Kevin goes for maybe an N and risks of not drawing the energy card, which could potentially lose him the game, or if he just goes with Professor Sycamore and draws almost his entire deck. And we see him debating, and it really looks like he gets an N. The N is also quite good here because Nicolo only draws 2 prize cards, and there is a Wobbuffet active, which means the item lock is not present at the moment. So Nicolo could play his VS Seeker, he could play his item cards, Trainer Mail, Pokeball cards. So he could be actually very afraid. However, we see Russies and VS Seeker. This is one of the best combination of cards you can draw at the moment.
Yeah, there was a little fist bump when he saw the second card was the Psychic Energy for a second there. I thought he might have messed up because he promoted the Wobbuffet immediately after his Trevenant break was knocked out. He could have promoted the Shaman because he drew into another Shaman, but now he couldn't use the Poke ability, so the only way he could have done this was really his only chance, and he drew into it.
Yeah,
Amazing.
exactly. It was, well, I don't really understand why you do it this way. He could have promoted the Shaman because it has a Philstone anyways, and then decide later on if you want to retreat either into the Wobbuffet that has 1 damage counter on it, or the Wobbuffet that doesn't have any damage. However, he was just very sure, okay, I need to attack with Wobbuffet anyways. If I don't draw into it, well, I will lose most likely anyways. And Nicolo is drawing like the perfect hand he can. VS Seeker, Rusty's Energy, then plays Professor Sycamore and gets the Sacred Ash. We know that all of his Frogly are under discard pile anyways. And now he just needs to, well, I guess he will just bubble if he flips heads. the Wobbuffet can't attack. So even if Kevin gets the Lysander on the Jirachi, he won't be able to attack anyways. And the Jirachi is resistant. Psychic Assault deals 40 damage, which are 20 damage. So the Jirachi was actually hanging on.
And let's see if he's going to flip heads on the bubble. It's tails. So
no, it's heads. It's hard to see, but it's paralyzed, so it has to be heads.
It is. And let's see, there's another Psychic Energy now. I think he has an Ultra Ball and a Shaman EX in hand, but he decides to pass.
Yeah, and now this will be so close. Nicolo gets the level ball. He is able to use Frogadier. He can... Well, is he going for the Wally? That would be such a great game. He gets the Wally, he evolves into Greninja, and now he has all the options. He has an extremely... He has his Greninja, which is almost impossible to knock out. His opponent doesn't have an option to get a new Trevenant into the game, and this looks really good for Nicolo, even though this is an extremely hard matchup.
Yeah, Nicolo was jumping up in his seat when he saw that option, evolving Greninja immediately. Another energy attachment here, and on top of that, a Professor's Ladder. Yeah,
he's just thinning out his deck. He just wants to have the best chances of winning next turn. By attaching the second energy, he can deal the 80 damage he wants. And then even if your opponent plays N, then you still have the energy. And this is just a great game. And I don't really see Kevin winning here.
Yeah, Shaman EX won't be any good for him right now. Professor Sycamore would put him into deck out mode. I think there's not much. I don't think there are even 7 cards left in the deck.
Yeah, and he can't even use setup to draw, like to not draw exactly 7. And now we see it.
Ultra Ball.
No, he goes for Professor Sycamore. He doesn't have any deck cards left, and
he's out of options.
It's not looking that he can win this game. So
no.
Nicolo doesn't even need to draw all the prize cards. He can just... Oh no, he plays Ultra Ball. Okay, never mind. I thought he played with Professor Sycamore. He goes for Ultra Ball, searches his deck for Trevenant, but there is not a lot left in his deck anyways.
Yeah, the only option I see there is the Bursting Balloon. So in case he might decide to attack, but the Rough Seas is out. So that's huge for him. A Greninja break, I don't see him winning now.
Yeah, it will be really hard to deal with this, and both players are down to one single prize card. I guess he attached with Shadow Stitching, so that Kevin cannot use anything like setup or something unexpected. And he needs to promote the Wobbuffet. He doesn't deal damage because of the Rust Seas. Well, he deals damage, but it gets turned off immediately by the Rust Seas. This is the last stadium that could hit the field from both players. They're both out of stadium cards, and now we see the last turn of the game. Kevin draws an AC, which is not the card he needs to win here.
He uses the AZ anyways.
Okay. But he can stall an extra turn.
But the Bursting Balloon should have hit the field this turn, I believe, because only this way he would have been able to deal more damage with Wobbuffet. But now that both last cards in his deck are Bursting Balloon, they are too late.
Well, and yes, the time is going down. This is one of the situations where one of the players is just trying to not lose as long as possible to then win the second game. And because Kevin is on the side of a matchup where he can apply pressure fast, he's the one who draws the first prize cards. So if he wins, even if he loses this game, and then he needs to win the second game anyways to win the whole series. But then the third game, he don't have to win the whole game. He can just draw a few prize cards, and when his timeout is called, he will win the game, because we're not in the Swiss round. You cannot tie here. So it's actually, it might seem weird why you not scoop, even though there is no chance for you to win. But depending on the matchup, you want to just have a very long first game, and then take a very long second game where you win. And then in the third game, you draw a prize and win the whole series, just because you are the faster deck. And Greninja is very slow, and as long as Trevenant is able to set up one Trevenant, have the item lock, and then Greninja can't really keep up. So Nicolo really has to hurry here to not lose with the situation. And of course, he wants to just try to win the second game anyways, I guess.
Well, you saw Nicolo speeding up just now when he saw this chance to use the Wally, evolve into Frogadier, and then immediately into Greninja.
That was all he was looking for. Like, oh, if I get this now, I almost win. And then level ball, Frogadier versus Seeker, Wally. he went so fast through all of his cards because he also knows, well, I'm the slower deck. I should hurry up.
Yeah, in his head, he was already in game 2, I believe.
Exactly. I think so as well.
Yeah, there was no option. We've seen Kevin's deck. There was no option. Maybe if he would have drawn into his bursting balloon a little bit earlier,
Not
because
really.
Wobbuffet would have not allowed him to use Greninja's ability. However, we saw that, well, Nicolo had it sealed when he used that Wally.
Exactly, and also just the fact that there was no Dimension Valley in play or Dimension Valley from Kevin in the discard pile already. The Wobbuffet just isn't able to attack that fast. You want to play Wobbuffet because for one energy card, you can potentially deal like 80, 90 damage, which then is enough to get the missing damage on something like Greninja Break or just Pokemon X in general, Mega Pokemon, Groudon, all of that stuff. You just use the Wobbuffet, and then when your opponent is half knocked out, then it's knocked out. This is the whole point of playing Wobbuffet. However, if it takes 2 energy cards and your opponent doesn't even have damage on board, it's just a very weird Pokemon to stick around.
Yeah, we noticed that Kevin noticed that there was a little chance throughout the game that he could win, where Nicolo wasn't really able to respond, so he decided to go with a big Sycamore for discarding 2 Dimension Valleys, and this way he went all in. He had to seal the deal very, very soon there, but Nicolo was able to hang on barely, just barely really, and able to respond with that last Greninja he found. And this is exactly when Kevin went out of resources. And this time he's not only going first, and we see already a Phantom in his hand, in his starting hand, but he will now have to watch his resources just a little bit better.
I mean, with Trevenant, it's really hard to keep track of your resources. You just want to rush through your cards, get the Trevenant, and then get a lot of Phantoms into play, and then evolve them. You usually don't really have a turn where you're like, okay, I'm happy with what I have at the moment, so I just attack, which Greninja often has. Often Greninja has a supporter in his hand, but they know, like, okay, the game state is okay, there is nothing I really need to draw this turn, so I don't really want to discard my whole hand. But with the Trevenant deck, you have to be aggressive. You need to get the bursting balloons every turn because they get discarded, and then you need the Trevenant, you need the energy cards. It's hard to keep up, and you can't really. It's almost impossible to really keep track of your resources and do decisions where you have the option to waste resources and the option to not waste them. Usually you have either of these cards in your hand, and you always go for the option that draws you the most cards.
Talking about resource management, looking at Kevin's hand, there's not much in there, only a trainer's man, and he's looking for a battle compressor most likely because it would give him access to a Wally, but nothing in there for him. His hand is basically dead.
Yeah, any way to draw into a Wally here is all he wants. However, he plays a trainer mail, and it's not even giving him, like you said, a battle compressor would be cool, something that he just wants that Wally, and even if he doesn't get the Wally, then he wants Ultra Ball to draw into Shaman, and if the Ultra Ball is not enough, okay, I think he could also live with N or Professor Sycamore to just draw into a better hand like this. He only has energy cards, he has a Dimension Valley, he has a Bursting Balloon, he has a lot of cards that don't really help him. However, he's playing against Greninja. When you play against Night March with that kind of hands, you can already pack up your things because, well, my opponent will knock me off next turn anyways. But the only thing Nicolo can do is bubble heads. The bubble heads would be bad enough, but it's not like Kevin already lost the game.
But the biggest issue here I see with Kevin is we've seen that throughout the game. When Kevin tried to build up second and a third Trevenant break, he was unable to do so because Greninja was out there and always making sure that Phantom was hitting the discard pile before it was able to evolve. So if I'm Kevin, I'm not only thinking of activating the item lock immediately in turn 1, but also I have to find my Phantom early, ideally in turn 1, turn 2, so that I can make sure that they become Trevenant and make it a little bit tougher for Nicolo to actually take them out.
Yeah, that's true. You need to find your Phantoms in the first turns before your opponent has a Trevenant break. With the item lock, it's kind of hard for Trevenant to draw into multiple breaks. Here we see the bubble, and it's hands. That's actually extremely important. But
except it's not.
He got the Trevenant he needed from top of his deck, and now he's able to actually tree slam the Froakie. That was a very huge top deck. It completely screwed Nicolo's turn over. It kind of punished that Nicolo didn't search his deck for Froakie and put it into his bench. However, he can then, well, he can use Stardust here, but that would knock out his Jirachi.
Yeah, don't forget about this Bursting Balloon. This is big. He has so many Bursting Balloons in his starting hand. Jirachi can't attack unless he finds a basic Pokemon to put on the bench. At least it's here. So he has to decide now, am I going to use my Jirachi to attack? And he decides this is not the way I want to go about it. Now if I use Tree Slam, this Driachi is going down without doing anything.
Exactly, and even if Nicolo attacked, knockout the 1 energy card, or Kevin has 1 extra energy and wins the game immediately because he can knock out the Froakie on the bench. So not attacking here obviously was the right choice. And Kevin actually goes for the knockout on Driachi. Because of the resistance, he only did 40 damage, but it already had 20 damage from the Tree Slam on the bench. So that's exactly 60 damage, all he needs. And the judges are discussing something. I'm not 100% sure what's going on. However, Kevin is taking a very, very fast lead here, and even that his starting hand didn't look really good. He's still on the top of the matchup, and now Nicolo drew into another of his Frogadier. 1 is in his discard pile, 1 is in his hand, 1 is in his field. If one of them is prized, he can't really use water duplicates anyways. However, he's able to find 1 of them, so he might keep up with the pressure as long as he draws into a Greninja.
Yeah, we know that this Frogadier is most likely going to go down and also dealing 20 damage using Tree Slam on the bench, leaving that Frogadier with 50 hit points. So a Greninja next turn is a must for Nicolo to be still in this here for game number 2.
Exactly, and now Kevin finds an Ultra Ball that he can spend either into a Phantom or most likely into Shaman EX to draw into supporter cards to just get more. If he gets the Bursting Balloon, he can kind of seal the match by just dealing so much damage so early. Kevin, even though, like I already mentioned, even though his start is extremely poor, he still has so many options to go with, and against a Greninja deck that isn't drawing really well, you can still win.
Yeah, for a second I think he was afraid. He was shuffling through his deck immediately. He was looking for a Shaman EX, didn't find it. He was among the last cards, so he was thinking, hey, are all my Shaman EX priced maybe? I'm not drawing into anything here. And using this Trainer's Mail again, there's not much drawing engine for him at all.
Yeah, pressing 2 of your Shamans doesn't really happen often. However, you have to expect that it happens in one of your games. When you play so many games in a tournament, every round is a best of 3. So you play about... We played, for example, yesterday we played 7 Swiss rounds, and then you have 3 top 8. That are 10 rounds. That are 30 games that you play. And then it's likely to happen in one of these games that you prize 2 Shamans, and you're always hoping that it's not the important games.
And this time he's going for Ultra Ball, and I'm almost certain that it's going to be a Phantom. This time he found himself an N. Will decide if he might want to use this right now or maybe wait, because he noticed that Nicolo doesn't have too much in hand. The only thing that he's really hoping for is I don't want to give him access to a Greninja.
Exactly. The moment Nicolo has Greninja energy card, he can at least do something. But however, just doing something is not enough. He needs to apply pressure. He needs to deal with this Trevenant Break. And even if he gets energy Greninja, then he has to take the damage from the Bursting Balloon. Without Rust Seas, that's 60 damage. You might get 60 from Tree Slam. Then you have only 10 HP left. Evolve into Trevenant Break. Then you still have... You don't really have so much HP to survive so long. And now after the end, Nicolo's hand is not looking good. And he really needs to get something from top of his deck. Otherwise, that will be another quick game.
Yeah, the Tree Slam is coming up. We notice 2 damage counters on the active Frogadier. We see a Greninja Break, I believe, in hand, but he doesn't need that one. He needs just a Greninja to keep attacking here, but there's a Bursting Balloon, so he's most likely not going to attack even if he finds it.
Yeah, and now because his opponent played and he can use water duplicates for the one Frogadier that he had in his hand earlier. So he's still staying into play, still hoping, well, maybe my opponent draws into a not so great hand. Of course, when you play N early, but you already drew a few prize cards, there are a lot of cards in your deck that you don't really want on your hand. And because you drew prize cards, you don't draw the full 6, you draw like 4, or in this scenario even just 3 cards. The chance of not drawing what you want is actually still quite high. However, Nicolo's field doesn't really look like he is going to win this game.
Yeah, on the other hand, though, Kevin really struggling here to get something going. If you look in his hand, there's still no possibility of drawing additional cards. There's a Shaman, however, he has so many cards in hand that Shaman might not give him access to too many cards. He needs a Trevenant, I believe, from these 3 cards. Also finds himself a Trevenant in energy. That's perfect, because there's another Trevenant Break in hand. So next turn he's going to have a second Trevenant Break just ready to get started if it might be the case that Trevenant Break, his active one, is knocked out.
Exactly, and even, well, Nicolo needs to attack twice to knock out the Trevenant Break. And if this happens, Then Kevin has his backup one, which he's then able to evolve into another Trevenant Break. And just a Tree Slam is such a strong attack. You deal 60 and then 20 on the bench Pokemon. And if you don't find your Russies early, then it's so hard for Greninja to keep up with this, because you knock out Frogadier, then you deal 20 to the next Frogadier, and then it only has 50 HP left. It means it gets knocked out by another Tree Slam. And now we have this weird situation where Nicolo can either promote the Frogadier or the Froakie. If he goes for the Froakie, he could potentially use Bubble, hope for a heads, but if he goes for the Frogadier, he can evolve it into a Greninja if he gets it from top of his deck, or if he draws into either an N or Professor Sycamore. Nicolo plays only 2 N, which is quite uncommon for Greninja decks. Most of them play 4, but he has 4 Professor Sycamore. He just wants to draw a lot of cards. He don't care too much about the disruption, but everyone knows N is the best card for Nicolo here at the moment, and he plays Skylar for N. Now retreats into the Froakie and just passes his turn again.
Yeah, so he was in an awkward spot of thinking about maybe I can stall a turn by using Bubble, maybe. Water Duplicate's not going to do me any good because there are no more Frogadiers in his deck. He's not allowed to play any item cuts, so there's really no way of him retrieving any of the Frogadiers that have been put onto the discard pile now. And Kevin really has this game almost sealed up.
Exactly. There is no Russies. If he draws a prize card, Nicolo can play N for 1, and then the chance of Kevin getting more Bursting Balloons, more supporter cards, is quite low. However, it's not impossible, and even if he doesn't draw a supporter card, there is still the Trevenant Break into play, and so Nico needs a Greninja, Energy, and then later a Greninja Break, another Energy. I'd hope Kevin doesn't draw a lot, and of course can change these games. Before Fates Collide, I think this would have already been a scoop by Nicolo. However, he can still win by just using N. And now we see a very smart play by Kevin. He goes for the Silent Fear, which means if Nicolo doesn't draw into a Russies, which he did, then Kevin can win next turn by just using Silent Fear again. And he also doesn't knock out the Froakie, which means he draws more cards from N. And also it's harder for Nicolo to attack now, because he cannot retreat the Froakie into a Frogadier and then evolve the Frogadier into a Greninja and attack him the same turn because he needs an energy to retreat. And he can also not evolve the active Froakie into a Greninja.
Another opportunity maybe that Kevin had there. He had a Lysander in hand, so if he knows that Frogadier is the last Frogadier is sitting on his bench, he might have promoted this using Tree Slam, knocking it out, because that way he would have really be assuring that Nicolo would not be able to evolve into any Greninja anymore during this game, but maybe he didn't notice that.
Exactly, but now there is no Dimension Valley in play again, so the Rusty stays here. Nicolo can use it again to go down to only 10 damage. However, 10 damage still means you have 60 HP left. 60 HP is all the damage Kevin can deal with his Trevenant. However, Nicolo has Lysander, the very interesting Lysander in his list. He has a Dive Ball, evolving into a Greninja. As long as he finds himself an energy card, he can at least deal some damage.
It's the last Greninja that there is, we know, because there's no other way to evolve it unless he finds a Sacred Ash right now, because this might be the only turn that he's allowed to play any item cards. That Shaman doesn't have a Floatstone or an energy attached to it. We know that Kevin doesn't have many cards in hand, so maybe, if Nicolo is lucky, he might get another turn of items after that.
Exactly, especially if he just deals 80 damage with the Moonlight Slash, then he can evolve into Greninja Break, play even more items, and then after that, knock out the Shaman in his turn, and then get some damage off something. Kevin needs to promote the Trevenant to keep the item lock active, but then the Trevenant takes damage. However, Nicolo has no supporter card played. Well, he had the Lysander played, but he didn't have an energy card. So hopefully for him, he gets a supporter in the next turn. He didn't play a VS Seeker for a supporter, which is a staple play after you play Lysander against the Trevenant deck. Just get all of your item cards in the discard pile. You saw him playing Neverball for Jirachi, taking this in his hand. However, he doesn't really want to use the Jirachi because it will get knocked out eventually by the Silent Fear anyways. And now he finally gets an energy card. He also has the Greninja Break, and let's see what he's going for.
I think Kevin must be kicking himself not using that Lysander. Now he has to deal with Greninja Break, but now he top decks his versus Seeker. Now he has access to finally another supporter card if he has a Professor Sycamore in there, and there it is, yeah.
Yeah, he also plays AZ in this list. I'm not entirely sure if it's in the discard pile. Would have been an interesting target for the Battle Compressor earlier. However, you don't really want to discard outs that you want to draw, because drawing into the AZ after a top deck gives you support, gives you more cards. Drawing into the Via Seeker, because you have the Sycamore in the discard pile anyways, gives you more cards too. So he don't really, there is no real need to discard the AZ earlier. You don't really want to put it in the discard. He just wants to reserve his resources, and now he finds himself an energy card to retreat the Shaman EX, put the item lock active again, but no Dimension Valley.
Yeah, he would have loved also to find the Dimension Valley and maybe also a Float Stone to attach to the Shaman. Now he will have to spend one of his basic energy cards to attach to Shaman to retreat it. On the other hand, he found himself a Bursting Balloon, and this will make Nicolo think twice about attacking next turn if he attaches it to the Trevenant Break that becomes active right now.
Yeah, exactly. This one Rust Seas is such an annoying card in this situation for the Trevenant player. It's just, you only deal 30 with Tree Slam, and then you deal 30 again, and 30. And because there is no Pokemon on Nicolo's bench, Tree Slam, of course, is a better play than a Silent Fear. This is quite an annoying thing when you face the situations with playing a Trevenant deck.
Here we go again.
Yeah, you deal a lot of damage in total, but you don't deal a lot of damage against only one Pokemon.
And all that Nicolo is doing here really is healing off damage from the Rough Seas. He's not allowed to play any item cards, and he's shuffling his hands so fast I can't even make I can't even see the cards that he has there.
Yeah, it looks like he has at least one energy card. He has the option to knock out the Shaman and then draw 2 prize cards, which he is just going for. He got another energy card. However, he doesn't really want to attack, because then he would get 60 damage from the Bursting Balloon, and then it's just 1 Tree Slam to knock out the Greninja Break. If Kevin finds himself another Bursting Balloon, then he could actually kind of seal the game already, just because if Nicolo attacks, then he will go up to 150 damage, but if he doesn't attack, then Kevin can attack again with his Tree Slam, then he would also have 150 damage, use Rasis, go down to 120 damage, but that's still a Tree Slam away from getting knocked out. So it's a very weird position, and the Bursting Balloon is an important card Kevin needs to draw now. However, he plays N, only gets 1 extra card, and he doesn't have any Shaman left in his deck too.
He made a very, very interesting decision here. He decided to attach the Mystery Energy to the Trevenant Break, when he could have attached it maybe to the Wobbuffet, because after that Tree Slam, and even after Rough Seas, that Greninja Break is in reach of being knocked out by Wobbuffet. In this case now, though, he will have to find himself an energy or a Dimension Valley to kick the Rough Seas.
Exactly, I completely forgot about the Wobbuffet, which just can knock out the Greninja even if it only has 90 damage on it. So as long as Kevin finds himself an energy card, he can win the game. And Nicolo, knowing I'm the slower deck, my opponent just needs to get this last game into timeout. The chance of me winning are extremely low, because he got the Bursting Balloon back to back now. So he's packing his things, going for 3rd game. He also goes first, so he has at least 1 turn of item cards, and it will be very interesting to see the decisions in this game again.
And there was a small window of opportunity for Nicolo to play item cards. Actually, 2 turns he got from that Lysander when he used it on Shaman EX. However, all his Frogadier were already in the discard pile, so he really had to find a Sacred Ash during these 2 turns. Wasn't able to do it, so this one Greninja was the only chance for him to get him through game number 2. He saw it was not enough, so he scooped right now, because he knows I'm going to be the slower deck against Trevenant. It happens, there is a slower deck than Trevenant, and now he actually needs all the minutes he can take to actually make it here in game number 3, because he has to have more prize cards drawn compared to Kevin in order to advance to the finals.
Yeah, in the first and the second game, you could see Nicolo had a long time where he stayed on 6 prize cards, and his opponent went down to like 3 or 2, 1 prize card before Nicolo was even able to draw any of them. And if you are in a top cut scenario, in the 3rd game, it's 1-1 already. You cannot tie, because one of you has to win, one of you has to advance into the finals. So then you just say, okay, time's over. let's see who took more prize cards. And this would be the Trevenant player. So it's very important for Nicolo to get more time to kind of play faster this game, because if time is called, the chance of Nicolo winning is super low. So he needs to apply pressure early on. He needs to play fast, maybe hope his opponent plays fast too. And then, yeah, just to win the last game before it ends with time.
I hope you all agree with us that we need a winner here to be able to watch another finals later on. So even though it might be deserved for both players to receive a tie because they have battled for so long yesterday and today, we need a winner here, and in the next 20 minutes or so we will find out who is going to be advancing to the finals, to the top two. I think right now we know that Nicolo is going first, so this very first turn of item cards might be the deciding one for this game.
That's completely true. We see Nicolo again with a few mulligans. Both players have no basic Pokemon in hand. When this happens, you just both shuffle hand back to the deck and then draw 7 cards, no extra card, which you are usually allowed to take after a mulligan. And well, this mulligan is really not what Nicolo wants to see. We just mentioned he wants to end this game very fast, and a mulligan is not what you want if you are kind of in a rush to win.
We've seen so many mulligans, and especially if Kevin is going first, he loves to see mulligans because it gives him access to so many more cards. It allows him to be able to ensure that the item lock is going on as soon as possible. It looks like that he is going to be the one that allows another mulligan for Nicolo, so he must like that. He's going first, and he's going to draw at least one more card.
Yeah, the extra card is actually cool. If both have a mulligan, it's just a waste of time. But if your opponent has a mulligan, you're usually fine with an additional card, one supporter you can use, one extra card you draw through. Maybe it's just an item that you can waste before your opponent is putting down the Forest Curse ability. So Nicolo really likes the mulligan here. And let's see, this is a Shaman start. This is a lot of energy. It's not looking great already for Kevin. But you saw the first game, it didn't look good for him too. But he managed to win.
Yeah, he had that Warp effect in the active spot, but he managed to somehow get it back to the bench. We know that he's only playing 2 Shaman EX, so that Ultra Ball he has in hand, he's really, really hoping that the second Shaman EX is not prized, because this is basically his only way of making something out of his first turn here.
Yeah, exactly. It would be very unfortunate for him if the other Shaman is in one of his prize cards. It's quite unlikely. However, it's a possibility. It can happen.
After you draw your 7 cards, you see one of your Shamans, you know, okay, I have 53 left, and I put 6 of them away. The chance of hitting a Shaman here is not extremely low. It doesn't happen rarely. It happens more that it's not priced than it's priced, obviously, but it's still an option. If it's priced, it will be very hard for Kevin to win. However, he has enough energies, so he can retreat the Shaman, promote a Phantom, which he then might get, but he has 2 Ultra Balls, and having 2 Ultra Balls is actually even better. If he draws into Dimension Valley, then he can use Ascension and go straight to the Trevenant.
Looking at Nicolo's hand there, I noticed that he has 2 Rough Seas in hand already and also Professor Sycamore, so that was of course not an option for him. There would have been a huge Professor Sycamore he has there. He has to watch his resources, so he is going to evolve into a Frogadier next turn. But what is he going to do afterwards? He can't use that Professor Sycamore, I believe. He has to wait until there's at least one Dimension Valley on Kevin's field.
Yeah, that's true. He don't want to waste his Rough Seas, and the Shaman is not in the prize cards. Kevin just going for a second one. Now he doesn't really have it for the later game. However, if he draws into supporter cards, his chances of getting the Dimension Valley are in his favor. So he attaches the energy to the active, then uses setup for 6. He's able to retreat, and just a Dimension Valley would be fine for him. Here we see it already, so this is turned out to be a great start for Kevin, even though his starting hand was only a bunch of energy cards and an Ultra Ball.
And I think very, very big actually is also the Phantom here. The second Phantom finally, that's the very first time that we've seen a second Phantom from Kevin hitting his bench very early on when there was no danger of being knocked out from a Greninja break. And on the other hand, there is an N, so I think Nicolo must like and hate this N at the same time, because on one hand the Frogadier got shuffled back in and there's no access to item cards now, and on the other hand, well, at least the Rough Seas will be preserved. He doesn't have to Professor Sycamore them away.
Yeah, N and Judge are very annoying when you play against an item lock deck, because you want to spend your items early as long as you can. But once you did that, your opponent can just shuffle your hand into your deck, and then, yeah, the cards you search are in the deck again. You cannot search them anyways, so it's very annoying when you spend your first turn, set up the perfect hand to deal with the item lock, and then your opponent just like, nope. You get a new hand, and then if you draw into a lot of item cards, or just not into a supporter or energy, depending on what you need at the moment, then this can just lose you the game immediately. And this is why N and Judge are very important cards in a Trevenant deck.
This is a very, very rough end for Nicolo, because the only useful card I can see here is really the water energy, maybe also another Froakie there, but no Frogadier. There's a Greninja, he can't use that, no item cards available to him, so this card is huge that he's drawing right here. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, and Kevin is able to find himself the Trevenant. Nicolo, even if he doesn't draw Frogadier, could use Bubble, and as long as his opponent loses one turn, he has to discard the Bursting Balloon. There is already one Bursting Balloon in his discard pile. Not 100% sure about the Eco Arm. But that would be very hard for Kevin to deal with. And even if Froakie flips Tails with Bubble, then Kevin has no energy attached to his Trevenant, so he cannot use Tree Slam. And here we see Nicolo going to a Skylar for Lysander. Very interesting play. He can put it into his hand next turn. He can play Lysander for Shaman, get out of the item lock, then play his hand down again. I'm very curious about what cards are in his hand, so that it makes sense. He's just making 100% sure that if he uses Bubble, he doesn't get damage from the Bursting Balloon, which he does not. However, he flips Tails, which is quite unfortunate, but like I already mentioned, not too hard anyways, because Kevin cannot attach to energy, so he cannot use Tree Slam no matter what. And if he finds himself a Trevenant Break to attack with Silent Fear, he wolves anyway, so if he got paralyzed, he could have gotten the Silent Fear no matter what. So this was just more of a turn like, well, just use the Bubble, I can. So
exactly, might as well use it. So all that Kevin needs now is the energy to put some pressure on with Silent Fear. It's going to put Froakie at 30 HP, hit points left. But on the other hand, we know that there's a Lysander coming. So I think if you're Kevin, you need to prepare to be able to retreat a Shaman next turn. There is a Float Stone in hand, so that's why he decided to go with the basic energy to attach to the Trevenant Break. He can't attach the Mystery energy to the Shaman, but as long as he has a Float Stone, he should be fine to be able to retreat it. And this one turn of items that Nicolo is going to have right now, he can't avoid.
Exactly, and just the yeah, never mind.
But he finds himself the Frogadier. This is so important. I think he was also running through his deck just to make sure that he knows how many Frogadiers are left in there, because he's going to use the water duplicates, and that's basically all he needed. There's not too many item cards that he needs at this point. There are not too many Frogadiers in the discard pile. I think none of them even. No Froakies, no Greninjas. So the only thing that he really has to make sure of that he is actually able to get himself a nice stream of Greninjas going. This Trainer's Mail, well, this Bursting Balloon might come in handy now if he decides to use it. But at the same time, as long as there's no rough seas, Kevin's number one option usually is the Silent Fear, and this is not activating the Bursting Balloon.
Yeah, that's true. The Float Stone is very important in that situation for Kevin, because then he can retreat without attaching an energy card and then still go for a Tree Slam. Tree Slam takes 3 energy cards, but with the Dimension Valley in play, he can use it with only 2 attached because he's a Psychic Pokemon. So even if Nicolo has the Rough Seas, he can get rid of the damage and then kick the Dimension Valley. And now this one play with Tree Slam is not viable anymore. He's also able to attack with Water Duplicates. Great, none of them is prized, so he has his army of Frogadier set up again.
It took some time, but finally Nicolo is here. He overcame the item lock by using Lysander. He searched for it with his Skylar, and now he has everything he needs. Maybe another Professor Sycamore in hand to allow him to draw into more Greninjas next turn, but now this is not looking too bad for him.
Exactly. When you have 2 Lysander, it's easier to deal with Trevenant because you have just 2 that you can draw into, and also you can later play Lysander and then play multiple VS Seeker to get like 2 Lysanders back, and then you have always this Lysander option to just get all of the item log and do something. However, only one Lysander, and he played it, didn't play VS Seeker on it, so the chance of having another Lysander is extremely low. And Kevin now has the option to retreat into Trevenant, use Silent Fear, or just use Ascension, set up another Trevenant, and just having this big board position. However, I feel like the Silent Fear is the better play in this turn.
Yeah, especially keep in mind that the clock is almost running out. We have 5 minutes and 30 seconds left, so Kevin has a nice, very interesting decision to make here. Am I going with Tree Slam, trying to knock out as many active Pokemon that I can, dealing more damage on that Frogadier, for example, or the Greninja that will be coming up soon? Or am I going with Silent Fear, spreading more damage in the process, but at the same time, I might risk drawing prize cards later on, because remember, if the clock runs out, there's going to be 3 extra turns, and at the end of these 3 extra turns, it's going to be decided who has more prize cards drawn, and he's going to advance to the final. So a very tough decision for Kevin here.
Exactly. If he uses Silent Fear, he doesn't really draw prize cards that fast, because he doesn't really knock out Pokemon. But if he uses Tree Slam, then he don't deal so much damage in total. For example, at the moment it's 120 in total with Silent Fear, but only 100 in total with the Tree Slam. And depending if he gets a Rusty's, then the Silent Fear of course gets completely denied. And the Tree Slam gets also quite denied. However, there's still then 30 left on the Frogadier, so you have to trade off. But I'm pretty sure Kevin realized, okay, Nicolo doesn't play a lot of Rusty's, so going for the play, that means, okay, I just assume my opponent doesn't have the Rusty, doesn't draw into the Rusty. This turn is more likely to lead me to success, considering that there's always already one in the discard pile from Nicolo.
Yeah, I would agree. There's one more Rough Seas, and on Kevin's side we know that there are 2 more Dimension Valleys, even if this one goes down. So he must like this situation in terms of stadiums right now. It was an interesting situation just now. Kevin was considering evolving his active Phantom to a Trevenant when he noticed, oh, I have to retreat this one. Maybe I do this one first because I would have to pay the Mystery Energy to do that. So he almost found himself in a very difficult situation. He got out of it. So now the Trevenant Break is active. It has energy. It has the Bursting Balloon. So if Nicolo finds himself a Greninja, he has to think about, am I really attacking with this, taking the 60 damage, or would I have to wait another turn?
It doesn't really look like Nicolo has a Greninja in his hand. He has a Wally, so this is definitely an option for the next turn. However, if he does not do anything this turn, Kevin can use another Silent Fear. And then if he uses a third Silent Fear, he will draw, I think, 2, maybe 3 prize cards. It doesn't look like Nicolo is able to attack a lot next turn, so there is still the potential 4 prize cards taken for Kevin's next turn. We have about 3 minutes left. Nicolo doesn't have any options. He's just passing his turn, discarding the Bursting Balloon. And now you can either use Tree Slam, knock out the active Frogadier, put 2 of the bench Frogadier onto 50 damage, and then knock at least one of them out in the next turn with the Silent Fear.
Yeah, this is terrible.
Yeah, or you just say like, okay, I don't really want to lose to N, and I can just take all of the prize cards later anyways, and use Silent Fear again.
I just got a glimpse at Nicolo's hand. He has 2 Greninja Break in his hand, 1 Wally. There's no way that he could respond next turn.
Exactly, and now he even has the Lysander, and it's not very common that you play Lysander on a Pokemon and then don't knock it out. However, in a Trevenant deck, this is the big reason why you play Lysander. You want to play Lysander on an opponent, on an opponent's Pokemon that he doesn't really need at the moment, or that's hard to retreat. Lysander Hooper is the favorite play for a Trevenant player. However, just this Lysander on Froakie means if Nicolo doesn't have an energy to retreat, I almost win the game. And Nicolo is praying, please give me the Rusty now. If he doesn't get it, then we see a Silent Fear knock out every single Pokemon that is not evolving into Greninja or Frogadier this turn.
Yeah, I can think of a hand with 4 Greninja, 1 Professor Sycamore, flipping heads on Bubble. Good game.
Well, that would be great. Just Rusty's and 1 Greninja would be at least something to stay into play, but it looks like a lot of item cards. Energy, he got 1 Greninja, so one of his Pokemon will not be knocked out. However, Kevin plays in his deck Wobbuffet, so even if the Greninja doesn't get knocked out here, Kevin now draws 4 prize cards. 4 prize cards in 1 turn. And then the next turn he just uses Wobbuffet knockout and wins the game this way. before the time runs out even.
Yeah, and he actually decides to go not with bubble. He decides to go into offensive. I have to draw Bryce cards. No, he knows that stalling for time might not do me any good because the next Silent Fear is going to knock out so many Pokemon. I can't recover in time for that. You can see it's 50 seconds left. After that, we will have 3 additional turns. So there's really no way that you have to go into the offensive if you're Nicolo now. But at the same time, your whole board is going to be cleaned up after this turn.
Exactly, I don't really see any move that can really win Nicolo the game. It's not really time left for him to draw 4 prize cards anyways.
4-hit KO.
Exactly. This is great. I've never seen this on stream too. I don't really like playing Trevenant. I also don't like playing against it. So I didn't see a lot of Trevenant games. However, Silent Fear is one of these attacks that can knock out so many Pokemon at once. You can draw so many prize cards. In Germany we saw one of these turns where Silent Fear knocked out 2 Shaman X at once, which also 4 prize cards. However, it looks more impressive if you just knock out 4 Pokemon in one set. Now we have time out, and I don't really think Nicolo can respond here.
Yeah, even worse, Nicolo wasn't drawing any water energy out of that big Professor Sycamore.
Yeah, now he knocks out with Wobbuffet. It's time out, and he just knocks out all Pokemon from Nicolo. He wins by benching out his opponent, even though he just